Let me say a pleasant good evening to Mr. Seeraram. Ved, are you there?
Yes, Mikey.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you on as always. Let's get down into business. Back pay, minimum wage increase, Christmas. I mean, was it a bag of goodies that we heard yesterday from the finance minister?
Well, you know, one of the first things in a budget, you have to establish budget credibility. So how do you do that? How do you establish budget credibility? It's very simple. You look at the previous year, the year previous to that, say about 3 or 4 previous budgets, and say have all the projections and the promises and the expectations by the government to do certain things. Did they achieve those goals? And the answer is most likely not. So I would not put much emphasis on the credibility of the budget. It's just another budget that's come and it's gone. That's about it. So you have to really, for the individuals, we are not, the title of the budget presentation, by the way, just let me go back to it because that's very important. It was about building capacity for diversification and growth.
Right.
Am I right?
You're right.
Building capacity for diversification and growth.
And let me say something here, Mr. Seeraram. This word diversification has been played back and forth for the past 8 years, and it makes you wonder exactly how is it defined by the government. I mean, lots of money, and I just want to give you an example: 400 million more to boost agriculture sector. Is the agriculture sector basically underfunded? Because no matter how much money it seems to be, you know, they throw or they say or they allocate for agriculture, basic things like access roads. Farmers can't get to their crops, so I don't know how it is that we're going to establish agriculture sector. Pesticides, simple basic things.
That extra 400 million, where exactly is it going to be spent? You cannot say, okay, I'm going to build some roads, but most of that will go into administration, so that is lost. If you look at the size of the agricultural sector, about 2% of GDP. That's what they say, right? So 2% of 1.5 million is just, that'll be about $2 to $3 billion. Why would I give a ministry $1.5 billion to spend on an industry that's producing, let's say, $3 billion? It just doesn't make sense. It's better you close off the ministry and just give the money directly from the Ministry of Finance to farmers. But let me just correct 2 major things, right? Two major things. One, they said the deficit was is 59 minus 54, about $5 billion, right? Now every year, they say total revenue, in this case 54. Total expenditure, 59, fiscal deficit, net of capital repayment. That means to say total expenditure, net of capital repayment. You have to add the capital repayment. So if you're showing a deficit of $5 billion, you have to add another $6 billion. That's $11+ billion is the deficit for this year and last year and year before. So that's a major misrepresentation. Because in a budget, if you look at all the previous budget, they attempt to say, how is government going to finance the deficit? If your deficit is, this year they didn't even attempt to say they're going to fund it by way of A, B, and C. Sale of assets, borrowing money, etc., right?
Right.
How they are funding the deficits over the years is that they are also not paying their bills. So, you're taking credit, you're not paying your bill. Look, they have money for the farmers. They're not paying it. They're just hoping all the farmers die, and that's about it. How outrageous that would be that you're waiting for not to pay a payment, hoping that the recipient dies. I'm asking you, how low can this country go?
Well, you're right. And every day we ask that question, how low can this country go? Now this stands out, of course, because this is the talk about town. The finance minister said in his delivery, he said, I propose to initiate action to minimize the country's socio-economic imbalance and stimulate consumer spending aimed at economic expansion. I want to repeat that because, I mean, to initiate action to minimize the country's socio-economic imbalance and stimulate consumer spending aimed at economic expansion. To achieve this objective, I propose to increase the minimum wage by 17% or $3 per hour from $17.50 to $20.50 per hour. And this measure will benefit approximately 190 persons in the workforce and will require, of course, an amendment to the minimum era. But the fact of socio-economic imbalance...
Let me address that, Mikey.
Yeah, please.
So, you said businesses, you pay those people more, right? Get this one, eh?
Right.
Businesses, you take money from your coffers and pay these people more, and they will buy more. Now, if you're transferring money from one sector to the next, it means the first sector is have less money to spend. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
So if I have to pay, or somebody has to pay me a little more money for my wages, great, but they will have less. So I will spend more, they will have less to spend. So where is the net stimulation? There's none. There's a lot of foolishness that is going on in this country and at the highest level. I'm sorry that there's no logic in this. There's no logic. If, however, look at this one. If, however, government has over 10 billion in VAT refund and payment to creditors and payment to cane farmers and whoever, if government go and borrow that money, right, and spend that money, do you know how this economy will be stimulated? That's the real stimulation. Pay your bills. Pay your bills.
Yeah, because I can't see the logic in the fact that you are telling me that $3 more is going to minimize the country's socio-economic imbalance. Now, the average man cannot simply be guaranteed by any government that if you purchase a piece of property, that the government is going to rent it from you. The average man doesn't have the privilege of taking state land or farming agriculture land and then, you know, getting it upgraded to homestead and then placing a large mall on it and only paying $1,500 or $2,000 a year on commercial tax. That is not what the average man has the privilege of doing. So when you talk about the country's socio-economic imbalance that is, how is $3 going to justify the fact that there's a group of people that know all the loopholes and are benefiting while the average citizen is suffering? $3 more is going to give us that.
Right. Okay, well, let me emphasize the point. The government is achieving the objective because they're having two of us like fools debating something that should not be on the table at all. Two of us are wasting our time debating something that is so outrageous. It is too outrageous. But let me give you some other figures, right? So I'm saying the deficit is certainly more than 5 billion. It's more like 11 billion. How is government going to fund it? Now, when you look at this expenditure of $59 billion, you remember that chart, that table?
Mm-hmm.
8 billion education and training, 7 billion health, 7 billion national security. We are a cops and robbers country, you know. 7 billion for a small country like us. Works and transport 3, public utilities 3, rural development 2, agriculture 1.4, housing 1.1, social development 5.5. When you total that, what do we get? What do we get? We get $32 billion. So they said they're going to spend 59. They show us where they're going to spend 32. Where is the remaining 27 billion going to be spent? Should that not be on front page? When I say in the document that is being spoken about and published, where is that 27 billion additional going to be spent? Where is it? Well, that's an incomplete document. Now they'll say go to the details, schedules, and so on. But you are representing this thing to the board of directors. You don't expect the board of directors to go fishing to see where that 27 billion will be spent? Are you curious to know where that 27 billion will be spent? I suppose everybody should be.
Now he goes on as far as education. He says that the administration, this administration, has consistently recognized the importance of an educated society for growth and development. Our educational institutions have been creating a pool of individuals capable of charting the future in a growing economy. Some with entrepreneurial spirit have been able to set up companies and create jobs as employers. In this process, the quality of life of our citizens has been consistently improved. Now, that in itself is contrast to, you have a prime minister saying that 2,000 students fell through the cracks in the midst of the pandemic. So I don't think many of those 2,000 students, some may be on Raymond Yard, some may have been lying in a pool of blood, some may be caught up, whatever, but how many of them that fell through the cracks are now entrepreneurs, we don't know. And he goes on to say, now hold on, we are now living in a knowledge-based economy and are pursuing an education system that is modern. How many students were unable to have access to devices to be online in the heights of the pandemic to actually get an education? So what are we hearing here? Tell us.
Yeah, Mikey, I just read this maybe half an hour ago, and you repeating it giving me a headache. It's giving me a headache because that is so far from the truth. So far from the truth. You go and do a survey of people being educated, secondary education as well as university, and ask them where did they apply for jobs, what do you expect to do, is there any hope? There's a high level, this is what I would call the unemployment and the depression index is very, very high in Trinidad and Tobago. It is very high. For instance, these things maybe is just talking. There's no reflection of reality, and people are. If the persons in charge of this government do not recognize the reality on the ground, how are they going to fix the problem? How are they going to fix the problem? People, the hopelessness index is extremely high. Go and just talk to anybody in the street. They say unemployment is what, 3 and 4%. That is not true. That is not true. There are too many persons unemployed that they have to scratch and bend backwards and do all kinds of odd jobs just to survive, or they go into crime. So we are rife. We are pregnant with all the conditions where people are going to increase crime.
Yeah, and if businesses will have to, of course, dip in their pockets, this increase in pay, and of course, everyone knows in business, your labor bill is your highest bill. That's your highest expenditure, your labor bill. And then now you're hearing from the Commissioner of Police that if you're going to make large transactions, commercial transactions, perhaps you need to get private security. That's another cost. And secure your business. I mean, what are we looking at as far as these SMEs? Was there any incentive there as far as putting the SMEs back on track?
All right, let me touch on the SMEs, right? Now, our country, our economy is not a deep economy. Deep meaning to say we depend on locally grown or locally mined raw materials and converted by way of labor and machinery and ideas into saleable products. It's not like that. This is an import, wholesale and sale economy. Let's look at GDP. I don't like the word, but we'll use it because people tend to give definition to it. Let's say a GDP of $150 billion, right? When you look at our propensity to import, in my estimate, is over 90%, you know. Because the gas now that you consume is no longer locally produced. So that's another 20, 30 billion that's just coming out of GDP that has to be imported. That's another story with regard to closing down the refinery and the madness we are now experiencing.
Yeah.
If this country don't have foreign exchange, we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble. And when you look at who is using the foreign exchange, and that there's no incentive for import substitution, I thought this would have been a great opportunity to tell the farming community, we are going to ban the importation of all tomatoes. within 2 years, all it produce all the tomatoes we will consume. Now, people will say that's reckless, that's against WTO and so on. I'm saying no, forget WTO for the time being. This is a question of survival. Either we devalue the dollar to such an extent, or we put up negative listing.
Right.
The third alternative is that central bank say, we are not giving you foreign currency to import tomatoes. We let us grow it here ourselves. I don't know if you recall, you might be old enough to recall when Chach Mohammed, who was Minister of Agriculture, he banned the importation of tomatoes. And suddenly we were producing all the tomatoes we need. So when we produce it, apart from fertilizer and so on, which also could be replaced by local substances, we save foreign exchange on the importation of all the tomatoes. We can do so for many other things. Many other things.
Yeah, but the fact that, and you did raise a point there as far as who's getting this foreign exchange and what are they using it for? I mean, are they using it for pharmaceuticals? But then again, the whole pharmaceutical industry has been monopolized by one company. One company now is responsible for the importation of all pharmaceuticals in this country.
Going back, I don't know if you recall, maybe in the 60s, you probably wasn't bosses yet. When 60s and so on, to buy any special tools, you had to go into town by terrestrial to buy it,
Wow.
So you had a few importers, and that is what is happening now. The SME is being wiped out. When Pandey came in and he said, look, go and bring in foreign used cars and so on, that opened up this economy in such a massive way that these SMEs and the non-traditional businesses who got an opportunity to participate seriously in the economy in Trinidad. Now all of that is being reversed.
It's gone.
All of that is being reversed. So we just have a few big importers because they have access
to it.
They have access to foreign exchange, and the smaller persons, when they go to the bank is selling them black market price,
Yeah. Well, we've got to close off. We've got to close off, Ved. But closing comment quickly. Where do we go from here?
Well, I can't treat the budget seriously. My only recommendations to the citizens is to buckle down and try and survive the next year and a half before the next election.
Yeah.
Try and survive and take care of your family. And just plant something in the yard, whether it's corn or fig tree or if you plant breadfruit, that in a few years' time you'll have something to eat throughout the year, breadfruit and champagne.
All right.
We have to be on a survival mode.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll be checking in with you periodically. Thanks a lot again.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you so
Mike.
much.